Members of the Council, officers of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for his worship, the Mayor of Nuneaton and Bedworth, Councillor Jeff Clark, JP.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to this council meeting, 14th of December 2022. The agenda is as follows, as printed, and there's no intention to deviate from that. What I would say first, however, is that sadly, many members will be aware that unfortunately, former Mayor, Mayoress, and first alderwoman of the Borough, Diana Hawkes, passed away recently, and I'd ask members will stand for a minute's silence, please. Thank you, everyone. Right, moving on to agenda item 1, the evacuation procedures. As I say, welcome to this evening's meeting of the council. There's no fire drill expected this evening. However, if the alarm does sound, please exit the building by the green exit signs, and we will gather outside the former Virgin Money Bank premises opposite the front of the town hall, or the alternative, the other areas that you've entered by. If anyone needs any help, please make yourself known to one of the officers now, if you feel you may need help should that occur. Item 2 is apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Chris Wilson, Councillor Neil Phillips, and also Councillor Jack Kennow. And I think got running late in relation to... Sorry? Yes. I've got Councillor Mandy Tromans, who is running late and stuck in traffic. Are there any others? Councillor?
Yes, please. Apologies from Councillor Joy Coventry. She's ill, actually.
Oh, bless her. Yeah.
And apologies from Councillor Watkins.
Okay. And was that the same one? Thank you. Those are noted, members. Thank you. We then move on to item 3, the minutes of the council, which took place on the 19th of October. Can I move that these are a true and accurate record? Members? Yeah. sorry, is that in relation to a question in a minute? Matters arising, is it? Just let me get the minutes first, Councillor Condacor. Members happy with a true record? You're not happy with a true record, Councillor Condacor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm very disappointed they only came out a day ago, which didn't give us a chance to actually read them in detail, which is really disappointing because it's 2.5 months ago the meeting was. So I can ask why they were so late. And also we took more than a 10-minute break if we're just being pedantic on the minutes. Thank you.
It's not a matter of questions, Councillor Condacor, I'm afraid, but I'm sure if you were to put that to the relevant officer or member, then they'll answer that for you. Thank you. So it's in relation to the accuracy of the minutes. Are members agreed? I'll sign them. No, any abstentions? None against? One against? Oops. 2 against, thank you. There's a no. Somebody's turned me over one too many. Then we've got the addendum, haven't we? Is it? Okay, moving on then. Declarations of interest. Any members that have any declaration of interest not previously declared or want to raise? No, I'm sure you'll make your relevant representation and should it occur during the meeting. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 5, Mayor's announcements. A couple of announcements, one from myself, in that we've received an acknowledgement from the King, King Charles III, in relation to our best wishes and the sad loss of his mother. The card is there if anybody wants to see the card that we received, thanking us for our comments in her passing. And also, I think you've got a point you want, something you wanted to raise. Pass you over to now to Mr. Brent Davis, the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to bring members' attention to, again, on the table in front of us, we've received a commemorative certificate and also a miniature replica of the Queen's baton relating to the Commonwealth Games, thanking us for our participation in that tremendous event and helping out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Just looking at the leader, have you got, sorry, Deputy Leader, any announcements? Okay, thank you. We then move on to item 6, is the censure of a member. Brent, Mr. Davis, you're going to read that out, I believe. Censure of a member.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will read this out in full. The background to this is on the 25th of November 2022, the Audit and Standards Subcommittee held a hearing into a complaint against Councillor Condacor that he had failed to comply with the following paragraphs of the Council's Code of Conduct. Paragraph 3A, you must treat others with respect, and paragraph 5, you must not conduct yourself in a manner which could reasonably be regarded as bringing your office or authority into disrepute. The complaint arose as a result of a social media exchange with another councillor, during which Councillor Condacor stated, "You clearly do not believe in democracy. We need a range of people on the council, not a one-party state produced by adjusting electoral systems and demonising every other party. You are getting more like Nazis every month." As a result of the last sentence of his statement, a member of the public took exception to the suggestion and raised a complaint. Despite being asked to remove the post and offer an apology, Councillor Condacor refused to do so, and so the complaint was investigated. When contacted by the monitoring officer, Councillor Condacor did remove the post, but by then it had been retweeted several times. At the same time, Councillor Condacor refused to offer an apology to the member who was the intended recipient of the post. In terms of the Standards Local Hearing Panel decision, at the hearing, the subcommittee found that Councillor Condacor had breached both paragraphs of the Code of Conduct for members. In relation to the sanction, because the statement was made on social media, the breach was considered to be significant, and the subcommittee felt that Councillor Condacor be publicly censured at this full council meeting. The subcommittee also resolved for its findings in respect of Councillor Condacor's conduct to be published on the council's website, and its findings to be reported to council for information. In terms of the censure, the subcommittee considered that Councillor Condacor's comment was a gratuitous insult that stepped outside the bounds of ordinary political exchanges which are protected by Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights. This caused offence to the complainant and the recipient of the social media post and displayed a lack of respect to both. Publicly making the assertion demonstrated a blatant disrespect to all members of the council, including himself. Accordingly, Councillor Condacor had brought the council and his office as an elected member into disrepute. The subcommittee agreed, therefore, that Councillor Condacor be censured as follows. You be formally censured that inappropriate language on social media is unacceptable. You apologise to both the complainant and to Councillor Evans publicly at this meeting for the use of the term Nazi as being both insulting and abusive. And, Mr Mayor, this censure will be minuted and kept on public record indefinitely. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Davis. Mr Davis, just a moment, Councillor Condacor. There is no right of reply. There is a requirement for you to apologise to the member of the public and the Councillor Evans. Do you wish to take that opportunity to make that apology now?
Mr Mayor, we've had a long history of problems at this council, and
Councillor Condacor.
over the last few years...
Councillor Condacor, please sit down a moment. No, please sit down a moment. It's not a debate, it's not for reply, it's for you to apologise, Councillor Condacor. Do you wish to do that?
Mr Mayor, my complaints against the Conservatives are never even properly considered, as are complaints of members of staff against the Conservatives. We
Councillor
have
Condacor,
to have
Councillor
a level
Condacor,
playing field
Councillor
here,
Condacor,
and we can't just have
Councillor
me as the
Condacor,
only councillor that's ever
please
censured.
sit down. It's been explained to you what you need to do in order to satisfy the requirement of the council. Are you prepared to do that?
Mr Mayor, this is not North Korea. I have the right to have my opinions. And
Councillor
I'm more than happy
Condacor,
to
it's not for
explain-
debate, it's not for discussion. It's for you to apologise to the member of the public and to the councillor concerned. Do you wish to do that?
Mr Mayor, I wish to make a statement. I will
It's not a statement, I'm sorry, that's not permissible.
We do not live in a dictatorship.
It's for you to apologise. That's the requirement of the
I have
committee.
not had an apology from Councillor Evans for his comments in April about me. I've not had an investigation of
Councillor
complaints
Condacor, please sit
and
down.
other matters.
Please sit down.
We need a level playing
Councillor
field,
Condacor,
and we
please sit
need
down.
other things investigating.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. You wanted to raise a point of order, Councillor?
The point of order is that he's not actually doing what he's supposed to do as per the Constitution, and can we move on? Because clearly he's not going to apologise.
Thank you for that point. Councillor Condacor, for the last time, will you apologise as required in the subcommittee's requirements in relation to the Standards Committee?
My human rights say I do not have to. I have a right to
please sit
explain
down
the
then.
problems and how the Conservatives have treated us all unfairly.
Please sit down then, Councillor Condacor. That will be recorded as such, that you're not apologising. And we will move on. We now move on to item 7, which is public participation. As set out in the Constitution, questions by members by public can take place at any council meeting for a maximum of 20 minutes. I intend to follow that tonight. So I'll go through the questions in the order that they were received, and members will be and the public will be able to ask those questions. Mr. Margrave.
Can I begin by wishing you, Mr. Mayor, and all councillors a Merry Christmas? It's clear that the council is in financial difficulty and on the brink of bankruptcy. The Conservatives, when they stood for election in 2021 for a 3-year term, promised in their manifesto free parking throughout December and January. You said this was vital for levelling up and helping local town centre businesses and residents. Despite the cost of living crisis, residents are facing broken promises because you've refused to offer the free parking in December and January this year. Broken promises aren't new. Labour in 2018 promised the green bin would be free and then put a £40 charge on them not too soon after. Both parties often lie to voters, and both parties promise change but often deliver more of the same. This isn't levelling up but levelling down, and it seems due to the finances. So more money needs to be found for the council to keep its promises, to restore trust. Another area that the council hasn't delivered on is cutting or scrapping councillors' allowances, which would free up hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend on things local people want. According to the government, councillors are meant to be voluntary, like a school governor or a magistrate, etc. Town councillors, however, aren't paid. In the past, the Conservative group called for councillors' allowances to be scrapped. One current member, at least here, made the argument, Mr. Mayor. Wychavon Council don't allow those on the County Council and the Borough Council to receive 2 sets of allowances. Councillors who are members of more than one authority, including the County Council and fire authorities, may not receive allowances from more than one authority at the same time. Hinckley Council have something called renunciation, which is similar to what is here, but it doesn't seem to be used here, where a councillor may, by notice in writing to the Director of Corporate Services, elect to forego his or her entitlement or any part of his or her entitlement to an allowance under the scheme. In order to make sure council tax is going on council services, not into the pockets of councillors, will the council scrap councillors' allowances or at least introduce similar schemes to Wychavon or Hinckley so councillors who have a good pension, work full-time or getting 2 allowances or more, as a county councillor and borough councillor, don't pocket more than they need, so that cash is spent on public services, not council agreed, while at least making sure those who can't afford to participate do have some kind of scheme in place. But it's about greed, and that's the problem here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Margrave. Councillor Golby, did you wish to reply as the leader is not with us today?
Just to say that he will get a written response from the leader himself.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Moving on then. Second question is from Ms. Jean Adams. Miss Adams here? Mrs. Adams, sorry. She's not. Mrs. Adams not here?
She is here, but she didn't want to speak. She wondered whether somebody else would read it for her.
Unfortunately not, Mr. Margrave.
Do you not want to hear residents' voices, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Margrave, it's Mr. Margrave. Mr. Margrave. Mr. Margrave.
Do you not believe in democracy, Mr.
I do, Mr. Margrave. Mr. Margrave, I'm not going to debate this with you. It's not for other members to ask questions.
You don't want to listen to residents, then, Mr. Mayor?
I will listen to the residents that are here. Mr. Margrave, it's not for debate. Please keep your comments to yourself. We move then on to... Oh, she arrived. She's going to speak. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Adams.
Okay, if you don't want to, don't worry.
There you go.
Why destroy an iconic building that was built as an amenity for the community and could and did cater for all kinds of functions?
Councillor Markham, did you wish to respond at this point? I note that there are other questions on
Yes, I will respond at this point. There's two that I want to do together, but the rest are basically separate. I can't lump them together.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for the question. The decision made was not to reopen the Civic Hall at this time. No decision has been taken to destroy the facility. The council is now seeking expressions of interest into opportunities from external parties.
Thank you. Moving on then to question 3, Mrs. Sue Pendleton. Would you like to ask your question? Mrs. Pendleton? Not here, okay. A written response will be provided. Question 4, Mrs. Linda Beecham. Again, not here. Again, written response will be provided. Question 5, Mrs. Joanne Browning. Yep, we've moved on to question 5, and that's Mrs. Joanne Browning.
Good evening. How was SLL chosen as the consultant to look at the Civic Hall, and were there other bidders who tendered for the work to conduct an assessment on the future of the Civic Hall? Thank you.
Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The Strategic Leisure Limited were selected as a consultant for this piece of work, as Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council were already working with them. The consultant that undertook the assessment and report has extensive years of experience from within the cultural sector.
Thank you. Moving on to question 6. Sorry, question 6. Mrs. Janet Batterby.
Good evening. In the Cabinet report of the 12th of October 2022, item 5.5 states there would be security costs to consider while the building stands dormant and to ensure the council meets its insurance requirements. Costs to be identified. What are the costs and what has been put in place to safeguard the building so it isn't vandalised and damage is not caused? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Batterby. Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Nothing has actually been put in place at present, as there are still team members on site to support the management and security of the building. Officers have been working with insurers to ensure that all required measures are adhered to in order to protect the building from damage.
Thank you. Question 7, moving on. Mrs. Valerie McCormack. Are you here this evening, Mrs. McCormack? Again, Mrs. McCormack will receive a written response. Question 8, Mrs. Pauline Ison. Are you with us this evening, Mrs. Ison? No. Once more, a written response I'm sure will be provided. Question 9, Mr. Darren Northall.
Thank you. It was said recently by a resident that the Civic Hall bar was profitable. Councillors, however, have said that the Civic Hall bar had never been profitable. Who is right, the accounts or the councillors? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Northall. Councillor Markham, once more.
Yeah, again, thank you for the question. The published audited accounts for the Civic Hall are the accurate figures. The venue was not making a profit, and the bar and catering, once taking into account operational costs and expenditure, was not profitable.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Yeah. Councillor Condacor.
Point of order, can I actually ask that that's referred to a scrutiny committee? Can you second that? Yeah. Yeah. Thank
Yep. That was seconded by Councillor Wright. So we now move to a vote. There's no debate on that. So members in favour that this question is sent forwarded to our scrutiny committee. Members in favour of that recommendation. 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8. 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I've got 2 more as well. There's other members. I got 8. Could you just indicate if you're in favour of that recommendation?
8.
That's 8. Those against? Myself 19. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. That vote to refer that matter is lost. Sorry, moving on to question 10. Question by Mrs. Christine Robinson. Mrs. Robinson.
Can you please speak up, because people at the back are hard.
It's a question by Mrs. Christine Robinson.
Hello, can I just say my name is Robson, not Robinson, to correct that?
My apologies.
That's okay.
It's the printed version I have.
The question is, documents have come out recently on the process of expression of interest for the community or someone else to come and run the Civic Hall. They appear to make it extremely hard for a community trust run by local residents to be able to make it through to stage 2 of the process. Why are councillors preventing the community taking over the Civic Hall instead of helping residents put it in a bid?
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Robson, get it right. Councillor Markham, did you wish to respond?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the question. Regarding the question in stage 1 of the expression of interest, this is a form, this is from the legal legislation and statutory guidance that the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council is following. We have received several other local authority forms and they are similar to our approach with regards to the information being requested. The expression of interest asks for top-level oblique standards information at this stage. The guidance document does cover the legislation and refers viewers to the section of the Act which specifies the relevant bodies.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Moving on to question 11, Mrs. Nadine Shaw. Mrs. Nadine Shaw, not with us this evening, so again, I'm sure we will receive a written response. Question 12, Jennifer Tallis. Again, we'll make sure that Jennifer Tallis receives a written response. Question 13 is Nicola Smith.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you, Nicola.
Why wasn't the SLL report on the future of the Civic Hall considered at the Cabinet meeting of the 12th of October 2022?
Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you. It was a draft report and provided a review of the options for the site to be considered. The site was being used as a vaccination site and supporting residents' health and well-being as a priority. The agreement with the CWPT had been extended and this was a priority to support at that time. There were several aspects from the report that needed to be considered before the final draft. It was always intended for future publication.
Thank you. Moving on, Julie Whitehouse, question 14. Julie Whitehouse, now we'll make sure that she receives a written response. Question 15, Rachel Hardy.
Right. Good evening. According to Councillor Wilson, Cabinet members took the decision not to reopen the Civic Hall at the Leadership Board on the 28th of September 2022. At the same meeting, the Cabinet also approved the sketch that would see the Civic Hall demolished. Did councillors therefore come to the Cabinet meeting on the 12th of October 2022 with a closed mind? Thus meaning there was predetermination and as such rendering the decision not to reopen the Civic Hall taken at the Cabinet invalid pursuant to the Localism Act 2011. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Hardy. Sorry, Mrs Hardy, I beg your pardon. Councillor Golby, did you wish to respond to that? The leader isn't.
The leader will give a written response.
Okay, thank you. Can we do something? So there's some works going on around the building and it's disturbing the chamber. So moving on to question 16, which is Jeannie Newitt. I'm not sure it's Miss or Mrs. Jenny Newitt, not here. Again, a written response will be provided. Question 17, Alex Tuft. No Alex Tuft? Not just arrived? Or has that just arrived? No? So again, a written response will be provided, Mr Tuft. Roger Adams, question 18. Mr Adams, you have 3 minutes anyway, if you want to read out your question.
My question was, why should such a can I, that one there, the following portfolio, the Cabinet reported on the 12th of October, something Bedworth Arts Centre,
Mr Adams,
agreement with the council.
we're struggling to hear you. Can you just speak a bit closer to the microphone, please?
I can't understand what written here, what my question was. Yes, please, if you would.
It's not usually allowed, but as Mr Adams, hang on a second, please. It's not usually allowed, but as Mr Adams is here and is struggling, I'm more than happy for someone else to read that question.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
The Cabinet report of the 12th of October 2022 on page 21 and 22 said in 4.7, 4.8, 4.9 and 5 that Bedworth Arts Centre have an agreement with the council for the use of an area of the Civic Hall. Access to this separate to the main Civic Hall building. However, the venue shares utilities with the Civic Hall. 4.8 explained the council would incur costs in asking the Arts Centre to surrender their lease. The report explained there wasn't anywhere else for the users of the Arts Centre to go. The report also said there were no Equality Act implications relating to the above. The Cabinet agreed to work to allow the Arts Centre to continue to the end of their current lease, 31st of March 2024. The report further stated agreeing to allow retention of access to the building for Bedworth Arts Centre to continue its operation and to allow user groups to continue the use of the venue until the end of the agreement in March 2024 would incur costs for the council. However, the council, knowing there were nowhere for the arts to go, and that in particular a disabled group would lose warm space and access to the support group, not to mention the distress caused by changes, the council, instead of sharing the cost of utilities, hit a vulnerable disabled group and others with the full cost of heating the utilities for the whole of the Civic Hall, meaning they could not stay. In respect of the above, and also considering the loss of the autism-friendly panto, why was there no Equality Act assessment, impact assessment undertaken, and the council using such a heavy-handed tactic against vulnerable group online with their public sector equality duties?
Thank you. Goes to Councillor Markham. Would you wish to respond?
Yes, thank you.
Before you do your response, mindful of the fact we have now concluded the 20 minutes, so please keep it as brief as possible.
So an equality impact assessment was conducted for the closure of the Civic Hall. Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council have always stipulated that Bedworth Arts Centre can remain within their premises until the end of their lease agreement of March 2024. There has never been an expectation that the Arts Centre would be responsible for paying the cost of heating and utilities for the whole of the Civic building. They will just be responsible for a contribution of their own usage. Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council continue to be willing to work with and support community groups to find alternative venues due to the closure of the Civic Hall building.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. What's your point of order, Councillor Connicore?
Can I ask that that answer and question is referred to a scrutiny committee, please?
Is that seconded? Councillor Wright. Those in favour that it's referred to a scrutiny committee? 2, 3, 4, 5. Any? Those against? Got that. Just keep your hands risen a minute, please. Any abstentions? 4. Sorry, that is lost. That concludes the 20 minutes for public questions. We now move on to questions by members. Yeah. Sorry, I should have confirmed then. Any questions that haven't been asked and answered? Excuse me. Excuse me. There's 20 minutes allowed for members' question, for public question. That has taken place. There will be written responses provided to all those questions that haven't received an oral response today. We now move on to questions by members. Please sit down, Mr. Smith. Please sit down, Mr. Smith. Meeting is suspended. The meeting is suspended. Please stop recording. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, everyone. Just to remind both the public and members, it's a full council meeting and it's council business we're here to discuss. There is very important business on that council agenda today, and we'll be moving on with that council agenda. If there is continued interruptions, I will clear the gallery. No, I'm sorry, there is no opportunity now for comment from the public. We're moving on to questions from the members, which is the council. It's the council. Move on to item 8, question from members. Councillor Evans, can I invite you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member for Planning
Mr. Smith, if you continue to disrupt the meeting, I will ask for you to be removed. Just a moment, Councillor Evans. We need to discuss. No, the council, the public have a question. I am not going to argue the point. I'm not going to argue the point. I will clear the gallery. Councillor Evans, did you wish to ask your question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member for Planning confirm whether or not the landowners who form the HSG4 woodland site within the Borough Plan signed a statement of common ground prior to the approval of the Borough Plan, and did the agreement commit to delivering the site as a whole and to produce all the infrastructure requirements together?
Councillor Smith, did you wish to respond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Evans, for the question. I can confirm a statement of common ground was signed between Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council and Framptons on behalf of AR Cartwright Limited on the 13th of March 2018 as part of the Borough Plan examination process. The statement of common ground set out that the parties agree that the site is suitable, available and deliverable for development, and sets out an agreement for the production of a master plan showing an indicative layout for development, together with facilities and infrastructure which includes a local centre and a new primary school. There's no reference in the statement of common ground to the phasing of the site coming forward for development, and no commitment to delivering the site as a whole, although there was a disagreement over the total capacity of the site. To date, there have been no formal pre-application discussions or any application submitted for either part of the whole of the HSG4 site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Moving on to question 2, Councillor Beetham. Can I invite you to ask your question?
Brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the portfolio holder for planning regulation, I have several concerned residents in Kingswood who are looking at new builds for themselves or their children who are ready to move out, and they've been looking to purchase new builds in other areas in Nuneaton. I've seen several videos and online comments about the qualities of new builds in Nuneaton and Bedworth. What enforcement powers does Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council have on the monitoring of the building standards for new builds, or in fact, any? And what action can or has been taken if they fall below the required standard? Thank you.
Councillor Smith, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Beetham, for the question. The quality of new build homes is controlled by national standards and building control regulations. These standards are checked by building control regulators, and in the case of Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, this function is carried out by a joint partnership with several of our local authority partners. Any developer, large or small, has to engage with a building control regulator and has a choice over which regulator service they use. If they choose our partnership service, then we automatically will get involved. However, they do have the choice to go elsewhere, and some smaller developers do. That said, all building control regulators are governed by the same building regulations, so they all have the power to insist that standards are met, or else the property will not be signed off for occupation.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Moving on, Councillor Condacor, can I invite you to ask your question?
Mr Mayor, this is for the Leader of the Council. I assume the Deputy Leader will sub in. I'm very concerned by the comments made at last week's scrutiny meeting that imply that the Council is about to agree to build a cinema fully at the Council taxpayers' expense on the Abbey Street development and separately will appoint an operator to run it. Cinemas have occupancy levels around 15% and are very dependent upon discretionary spending. We know that they have not fully recovered from the impact of the pandemic, and the Bank of England is expecting us to have the longest recession since the 1920s. The idea of a second cinema in the borough comes from a 7-year-old report investigating the possibilities of a small independent cinemas in Warwickshire, and that's now in the public domain as we got it under the Freedom of Information request today. Given the significant risks of building cinema carries, will the Leader of the Council confirm that the project is subject to an updated, robust business case, that it will require no long-term public subsidy, and that the taxpayer has some protection should the operator fail? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Councillor Golby, did you wish to respond to that?
The Leader will actually provide a written response.
Okay, thank you. Supplementary.
We have an issue with written responses not being put in the public domain, so can I ask that that is actually published? Same with all the questions. Because the minutes are published 2 or 3 months later, can I ask the Leader or Deputy Leader that these answers get published?
I understand your question, and you say you'll receive the written response that will go into the minutes and they'll be published in due course. Sorry, Councillor Green, can I invite you to ask your question, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question for the portfolio holder for Health and the Environment. My first official engagement as a councillor in Arbury Ward was to plant a tree for the Jubilee with Councillor Claire Golby. As part of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, the Queen's Green Canopy. Trees provide a vital habitat for wildlife, produce oxygen and remove CO2 while improving the urban spaces for our residents. Can you update the Council of any plans regarding the planting of new trees across the borough?
Councillor Guttridge, do you wish to respond to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Green, for the question. Trees are to be planted at various locations across the borough this autumn and winter, subject to weather conditions. And this is hoped to be the beginning of a wider tree planting across the borough in years to come. Locations for more than 240 new trees have been identified by the Borough Council after Warwickshire County Council secured funding from the Forestry Commission. Species to be planted this year in the borough include elder, common oak, copper beech, common lime, wild cherry, field maple and London plane. Tree planting is planned in Nuneaton at Coronation Walk, Weddington Meadows, Tompkinson Recreation Ground, Stocking Ford Recreation Ground, Whittleford Park, Stubbs Pool and the Dingle, Shelbourne Avenue, Popular Tree Farm, Ski Drive, Attleborough Recreation Ground, Stanley Road Rec, Ribsley Park and Tiverton Drive. Tree planting is also planned in Bedworth, at Anderton Road, Kersey Recreation Ground and St Giles Recreation Ground, and in Bolkington at the Bolkington Recreation Ground and Brewer Road. The good news of tree planting comes shortly after I revealed that Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council has already taken steps towards increasing the biodiversity within green spaces by creating new and enhancing existing areas of trial wildflower meadows. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge. Question 5 is Councillor Wright. Can I invite you to ask your question, please?
We're all facing the prospect of higher energy bills at the moment, but the increase in the council's electricity bill to an estimated 1.9 million for next year seems rather more than can be explained by the unit price increase alone. So what targets have been set for improving the energy efficiency of the council, and what progress is being made towards meeting these targets? Also, could we have estimates for next year's gas and diesel bills? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Croft, do you wish to respond?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Just to give you a bit of background, we purchase our gas and electricity through an organisation called ESPO, which is the public sector procurement organisation, through a system called forward purchasing, which gives us consistency throughout the year. We know what we're going to pay within the year. It goes up between years, obviously. The rates, the ESPO rates are commercially sensitive, so I can't publish those or give them to you. But it should be fairly clear from the current situation what the market pressures are on energy costs. Just to clarify to him, the 1.9 million forecast electricity cost is based on the new rates from ESPO matched against our previous consumption over the past 12 months. And it's actually about 100% price increase on our on the previous year. We had budgeted in the draft budget initially for 50%. You'll have seen an addendum come round Monday last when we actually got the rates from ESPO, what the increase was going to be. That's due to two factors, commodity costs and what's called non-commodity costs. Your commodity cost is the actual product itself. It's fairly obvious what's driven the price of energy through the roof. I mean, it's, we don't need to recite it at the moment. We've still got the supply chain issues from the pandemic working through the system. And of course, due to the problems in Eastern Europe at the moment, with the Russians using energy as effectively a diplomatic pressure tool, it's driven prices up across Europe. The non-commodity cost includes things like transportation, distribution charges, and also government levies and taxes. And if I may inject what may be slightly controversial remark into a fairly dry subject, if we're not very careful, this is what net zero is going to feel like across the piece, passing on attempts to phase out fossil fuels. It will end up being felt by the customer, increased costs and reduced bills. And of course, Mr Mayor, the suppliers have inflationary costs as well, so that's driving the price increases. So our current rate is fixed until the end of March 2023 for gas. I can't give him the gas projections for us because ESPO is still working out the rates on the forward purchasing for that. But again, gas and electricity prices are very interlinked, so it will be the same situation, I expect. On targets, we are currently doing a pretty wide-scale review of energy consumption across the estate, housing and the General Fund Council estate, looking to see how we can reduce our energy usage. We do have to balance, and this was discussed at Cabinet last week, whether energy reduction schemes are going, there's going to be a cost-benefit analysis. There's no point having huge capital outlays if we still get stung by the energy prices because of factors outside of our control. But we're already taking some sort of, I might describe as minor steps to reduce energy. We're trying to, for example, as we rent out part of the town hall, that will be energy costs that come off the taxpayer and go on to whoever our eventual tenant is. And I understand that the leader of the council has already given instructions that we won't be wasting money on keeping the lights on overnight outside the town hall. So that's I hope that answers his question and gives us an overview of the situation.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Croft. Councillor Wright, did you have a supplemental?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that with the falling cost of renewables, that it seems a bit odd to blame rising energy costs on net zero rather than on the government's failure to properly insulate and increase energy efficiency. Thank you.
I was going to say it was more of a statement. Did you? Yeah. You don't wish to respond? Okay, thank you. Moving on. Special item 9, special urgency decisions. It's a statutory item on the council. There is no special urgency decisions, so none have been taken. But then moving on to item 10, which is a petition to save our civic hall, hold a public meeting, listen to residents and stop the closure and demolition. So item 10, moving on to that petition. I think Mr Margrave, you had indicated you wanted to speak on that.
Thank you.
Let me remind you at the outset, please, that you have 3 minutes to present that.
The Civic Hall has been a political football for decades, kicked from red to blue. Today, let's start to take the party politics out of it, to put local people and our community first. I'm not here as a politician. Those days are long gone. I'm here as someone from Bedworth who lives in Nuneaton, who works with community groups and wants the best for our borough. This petition, signed by nearly 1,300 people, others signed by thousands more, and the tens of thousands who use the Civic Hall and Arts Centre each year shows how much the venue matters to our community and for our economy. Tonight we ask under the petition scheme for a public meeting and a proper consultation on Bedworth, in Bedworth. Point 3 to 5 also referred to the OSPs and transforming Bedworth, and we'd like a recorded vote. Full council can meet in Bedworth, suspend standing orders and listen to local people in a borough debate format. The council met in a sports hall. Surely you can meet in the Civic Hall, which was safe enough for the most vulnerable to get vaccinated in. Nuneaton is not designated for discussion or decisions on council matters. There is a long history of the council holding meetings in communities across the borough. Councillor Wilson said he won't allow a consultation or public meeting because local people will want to keep the Civic Hall open. That's no reason to refuse one then. The choice tonight, therefore, is whether you want to listen to the views, voices and ideas of people you are here to serve or not. Residents were told the Civic Hall wouldn't close or be demolished. They haven't had a chance to have their say. The council commissioned drawings that will see the Civic Hall demolished and seat numbers massively reduced. There is no money or plan to make that vision a reality. So we ask you to scrap those plans and support the community and a community trust to run the venue, to find a way forward to listen. While it's said the Civic Hall costs are a lot to run, much of that is creative accounting and wrong management. Figures used to consider closure were flawed, from attendance numbers to cost per head. On a peppercorn rent, like the Abbey Theatre, and run by the community, the Civic Hall would be very successful. But whatever Councillor Wilson says, local people do not agree the Civic Hall is a 1970s carbuncle. The Civic Hall is an award-winning community asset that deserves investment, not demolition. And we would ask you to have a public consultation, to listen to local people's views, to ask them what they would like. That's all we're asking for. And if you as councillors can't listen to local people and have a public meeting, what state is our democracy in, Mr Mayor?
Thank you, Mr Margrave. You do have 30 seconds, but you've summed up. Thank you. In order to be able to debate this, I understand we have to put a motion down to council for debate to open up. Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As part of the procedure to debate this, I do need to propose a motion instead of Councillor Wilson. I can't really speak very loudly because I've got... Excuse me? Do you know, I have to say, Mr
I'm
Mayor...
going to say, please don't be rude. We weren't rude to you when we weren't rude. Members weren't rude to you when we were listening to questions. So please don't be rude to the members. If you could try and raise your voice as much as possible.
Well, I'm struggling a little bit, Mr Mayor, at the moment. But yeah. So the motion that I'm going to propose to full council tonight is to that this council notes the receipt of the petition and further notes that there have been further decisions of Cabinet and Council since the receipt of the petition. To condemn the lack of proper business planning and future-proofing of the Civic Hall during the previous Labour administration, to welcome the expressions of interest, the expressions of interest process that has been launched to move the running of the Civic Hall from an unsustainable and expensive public subsidy to a third sector model, and to welcome that under this Conservative administration, we finally have a vision for what transforming Bedworth could look like in the future that allows us to begin the process of engaging further on regeneration of Bedworth. Should I speak on this now, or do you want me to propose and then second and then speak?
It's usually that you sum up at the end of this meeting.
So can I speak now and then sum up as well?
You do have opportunity to sum up at the end of the meeting.
So
if you want to speak on it,
yeah,
to raise the debate, but just hang on a second, Councillor Cole.
Just see the point of order.
Before you do speak, I need a seconder. Councillor Morton, you're seconding that proposal. Okay, so that's seconded. So if you want to speak, Councillor Golby, now's your opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out a few things that seem to be getting lost again in the melee. That the Civic Hall is not just a Bedworth building. And when we talk about the Civic Hall, actually, it's a Nuneaton and Bedworth building that is used and paid for by Nuneaton and Bedworth. The majority of people who pay council tax in this district are in Nuneaton. So if you... The whole assertion that this is simply a Bedworth asset is wrong. And we don't look at Bedworth in terms of division from Nuneaton. That's why we have proposed transforming Bedworth. Transforming Nuneaton is 10 years in advance of transforming Bedworth, and we think as a group that was wrong. When we came into control, the first thing we as a ruling group did was push Bedworth to the top of the list for looking at funding opportunities and looking at how we can actually change what's going on in Bedworth, because Lord knows it's been neglected for such a long time. And we don't think that's right. Now, this whole issue with the Civic Hall has come about simply because we haven't got the money to reopen it. And the arguments are being pushed backwards and forwards about finances, and I would just like to draw attention to the first line of Mr. Margrave's question that he mentioned tonight, which is, it is clear the council is in financial difficulty and on the brink of bankruptcy. Yet we are, by the same token, from the same individual, expected to find £1 million to reopen the Civic Hall. It's not rocket science to understand that local councils are struggling financially, and we have to actually review our services and the offers and the things that we have got on the table. We are doing a review. We are looking at current capital projects. We are looking at future capital projects. We're looking at literally everything. And that is to secure, first and foremost, our statutory obligations. Now, I'd also like to take umbrage with that as well. And I know that the leader is going to give you a written response, but we aren't on the brink of bankruptcy. We have some difficult decisions to make, but we aren't on the brink of bankruptcy. We were when we took over. Now, we've been backpedaling from that for a long time because nobody up there gets the state of the finances that we had when we took over. And the only reason that the 114 notice wasn't issued prior to us getting into control was because basically COVID hit and the government bailed us out with pandemic money. And that was before we took over. That was 12 months before we took over because the extension was put in with the election. So had COVID not hit, this council, in my personal opinion, would have gone bankrupt. Absolutely. And there was discussions had as part of the shadow leadership roles that myself and Councillor Wilson have that lead me to believe that. We've had a change of finance team, we're working things differently, and we're trying to dig ourselves out of a very big hole. And one of those ways to do that is actually we cannot afford to reopen the Civic Hall. It's not personal, it's not against Bedworth, it's not against any particular group, it's simply we do not have the money to be able to do it in the way it needs to be done. We're looking at third parties to see if they can do that, and I'm hopeful that that will happen. But all of this rhetoric and all of this noise that keeps just getting in the way of progress, and we need progress in this town, otherwise we are going to become a real issue, extinct, quite frankly.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. That now opens the matter up to debate. Just a moment, Councillor Evans. Point of order, Councillor Condacore.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, can we have a written copy of that? Because it's so incredibly complicated. We can't have an amendment to it if we cannot say where we want to then delete, etc.
Councillor Condacore, that's already been in process. Not in relation to the speech, but in relation to the proposal on the motion. So that'll be sent round as soon as it's copied up. I will open the debate now. Councillor Evans, you indicated.
I did. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I apologise first. I've got a bit of a cold. But I'll do my best. I don't want to rehash the arguments behind this decision, and for what it's worth, I think people in the public gallery have sat in these meetings before, and they know my personal views on this issue. I mean, no member on this side of the chamber, not least myself as a Bedworth resident, wants to have to do this. But members of the public tonight, through their questions, have rightfully identified that we have an issue with finance both locally and nationally, and we have to make some very difficult decisions. And of course, I welcome the fact that we have now done the expression of interest, and for what it's worth, I've already said, you know, I will support anyone who can come forward with a reliable, decent business case. And I wish anyone putting that forward all the best. But I do want to say this. I think Mr Margrave, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, said in his opening speech he doesn't want to make this a political matter. And I appreciate that he himself might not want to make this a political matter, or the group that he represents. That said, councillors sitting opposite on the Labour benches tonight have made this a political issue, Mr Mayor, because they are delivering leaflets through the town, and there are banners across the town on All Saints Square, Congreve Walk, Rye Peace Ringway, saying that a Labour council, a future Labour council, would...
Your point of order will be heard once the speaker has finished speaking.
This is absolutely on the motion because it's about the civic hall, and I will come into why it leads to council policy. But you have put in your leaflets in Bedworth. You're shaking your head. We've all got a copy. 30,000 leaflets went out saying that a future Labour council would keep the civic hall open. As a result, the Labour group on the council has got to have done some sort of prep work behind the scenes with officers in our finance department to work out how that is done. And you're shaking your head. That hasn't happened. Well, so it's a lie then. And we've established that now, which is great. But Mr Mayor, my point on this motion is this. It is in the gift of the opposition tonight under this procedure, if they want to present an amendment to our general fund budget through this petition, it's within their rights to do that. So I'm going to say this, Mr Mayor. If the opposition wish to propose a procedural motion to adjourn this council for a period of 30 minutes to come back and present an amendment to the general fund budget outlining how they would keep the civic hall open financially, you'll have my vote to do that.
I don't think that's something we can do at this present time. We're still in debate, and it's for members to debate that. They can make an amendment if they wish, and we'll debate that as well. Councillor Shepherd. Sorry, I should have, your point of order first of all. Yeah, that's you wanted to raise. I should have come back to you on that.
I've got concern that Councillor Evans has said the Labour councillors and pointed in this direction have put leaflets out. I can assure you the 3 councillors sitting here tonight haven't, so I think that is misleading. So I'm very happy for you to apologise for trying to mislead the public.
Is it in relation to something you've said? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a Bedworth resident, and I think there's a lot of Bedworth residents sitting in this gallery. I received a leaflet at my address in Wood Street, and that leaflet is on Facebook, all the social media channels, and I see other Bedworth residents nodding their head. I'm not lying. I can't apologise. I'm not lying. That is what your leaflet said. Now, if this is to do with the fact that clearly the Labour group on the council has got nothing to do with Bedworth, and it actually doesn't give a toss about Bedworth anymore, that's been confirmed tonight.
Sorry, we're not going to keep batting points of order about you. You had an opportunity. You had an opportunity to. Thank you. You had an opportunity to. Councillor Evans, please do not shout across the chamber. You had an opportunity to clarify the explanation, and that's where we're at. Is it a different point of order, Councillor Shepherd? Please continue.
I have got real concern about the language that Councillor Evans has just raised in the chamber. So I would like him to apologise for that. There was no need for the comments he made.
I'm sorry, but he's not prepared to do that. Sorry, I'll go back to Councillor Evans. It seems as he wants to.
I think I used the word toss. I apologise. I shouldn't have used that word, but I think that people know what I'm trying to say.
Okay, thank you. That's that clarified. Councillor Condicle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually want to take part in the debate on the subject matter at hand and the residents' petition. We've recently heard that Leamington has got £3 million, I think, from the West Midlands Combined Authority to do out a lot of their arts facility and the venue there, getting lots of money. Really great for Leamington. So this type of funding is available around to actually seed fund things happening. And we found out today from the cinema report for Coventry and Warwickshire that was done by the County Council that there had been the opportunity 7 years ago to put a digital projector into the Civic Hall so that it could sell do films in the daytime or between productions, which would generate probably about 20,000 visitors a year. So there's lots of things that will go into the mix of a plan to make a business case. I think things like daytime cinema, silver surfers, there's lots of things we can do to the Civic Hall, but obviously this council is not well equipped to do it and has got the management time to do it. So clearly, the keeping it open as is, that bridge is sailed, but we really need to go down the bridge of actually looking at how we save this and making sure it's saved by people who've got an interest in it and let the community save it with the right expertise. And I say I was most pleased there was actually some money around for Leamington. I hope we can, because there's a capital money and there's revenue. Obviously on the capital side of saving it, we need the same sort of 3 million. But also on the revenue side, we need more activities going on there, like the bar. And the bar was actually profitable. The answer to the question was really misleading because the catering was loss-making and the bar was profitable. And the bar could be really, really profitable if there was like films on and more activities. So I want to be constructive. I want to come back to the suggestion of the public there. And the one that I think...
Councillor Condicle, just a second. Can we have some quiet, please, so that everybody can hear the speaker?
And I think the one really constructive thing in the suggestion from the petition is a citizens' assembly chaired by the MP. I think that would be a good thing to do. I think the citizens of Bedworth, if they explain to them the options, and it's a very clever process, citizens' assembly, because you get people and you actually explain the problems and they make them own it. It's not like they can sit at the back shouting. They actually have to meet as a group, discuss the issues. They're really productive, so I'm going to propose an amendment to get rid of a lot of the politics in the motion for before us, keep item A on the paperwork we've just been given, and have item B convene a Bedworth Citizens' Assembly chaired by the North Warwickshire MP early in the new year. Okay.
Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Wright. So we now move on to that amendment. Do you have a copy of that amendment that we can send around? Well, I think we've done that for the Conservative group, so I think it's only fair that we send it out from any groups or any amendments. We will get that sent out, but just for clarification, you want to keep A? And no COD. Okay, well, just so members are aware what we are debating, you will have a copy of that in a moment. Councillor Tromans. You're speaking to the amendment now.
Yep, to the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to take the politics out of this, and therefore I'm going to bring in an MP. Not sure how that works. Again, we're not listening, are we? You know, we are hearing and hearing what residents are saying, and especially the ones that have come to previous meetings and have made very sensible comments and have tried to be helpful. Because as has already been said by a number of colleagues over here, we wanted to keep the Civic Hall open. None of us want to close this, but the money just isn't there to continue to support in a huge way, £1 million and £1 million more a year, a discretionary service. This isn't a statutory service, it's a discretionary one. So it's going to make it very divisive and very political to turn round to the borough of Nuneaton, Bedworth, Bulkington, rest of it, and say, you're all excluded. Yeah, I know most of you will be paying for this, but we're just going to have a North Warwickshire MP hold a debate of people from Bedworth to decide what all of the rest of you, the other 80% of you, will have to pay. I'm not quite sure that that's democracy or fair or reasonable, so I'm not going to be supporting this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tromans. Councillor Evans, you... Excuse me, this is... Mr. Margrave, Mr. Margrave, Mr. Margrave, Mr. Margrave, Mr. Margrave, you may have your opinions, but please, Mr. Margrave, I will take no further interruptions from the gallery, Mr. Margrave. I will suspend the meeting. And you will not have the debate that you're seeking. Mr. Margrave, Mr. Margrave. Mr. Margrave, Mr. Margrave, I'm not going to ask again. I'm going to instruct that the gallery is cleared if any more outbursts occur. Now, these members of the public want to hear this debate. We all want to hear this debate. The councillors want to consider it as it should be. Please allow that to happen. Councillor Evans, you want to speak on the amendment? Please speak to the amendment.
Thank you. I haven't got the the amendment in front of me, but I think it's calling for a citizens' assembly. What is that? I don't know what the legal definition of a citizens' assembly is. I mean, if we're talking about having some sort of system in place where members of the public can come and speak to their councillors, put their points of views across or whatever, or even to the MP. There's something called surgeries. Well, we, the Bedworth councillors, we hold monthly surgeries at the Bedworth Library, and we have regular attendance. What was it? I think it was about 5 residents we had on Saturday morning coming to see us about a whole range of different things, housing, planning. Since the announcement about the Civic Hall has been announced, I can honestly say I wasn't in attendance for one since then, but I don't believe that there has been a single person visit about the Civic Hall. But in terms of communication with members of the public, as a member, I've received emails, and those who actually reside in my ward, I've actually just gone to their houses, visited them, have had a chat for half an hour about the ins and outs. As actually, when you speak to people about it face to face, people understand the rationale. People have household budgets they have to set, and when they understand that the council is in exactly the same position as them, especially with the ongoing cost of living situation, people understand it. But it's calling essentially for a system for people to get together and meet with their elected representatives. That system is already in place. Second Saturday morning of each month, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, Bedworth Library, where all Bedworth councillors are in attendance. It's publicised on social media. It's on our website. If you have an issue, come and see us. Well, obviously... Well,
members of the public, Councillor Evans, just a moment, please. Members of the public, it is the final warning, I'm afraid. We will now continue with the debate. Councillor Evans,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If you'd like to...
And if people weren't aware, they wouldn't turn up. They do. We had 5 people on Saturday. The one we had immediately after the election, we had 11 people. We had people queuing up to see us. So come and see us next month. Want to hear your views? Of course we do. But we need to be upfront and honest with you about the situation we face financially. But if any member of the public, as part of the ongoing expression of interest process that we're going through, if we can provide letters of support or anything like that for actual sound business models, come and speak to us. I'm a Bedworth resident. I don't want to see the
Councillor Evans,
Bedworth
can I just
Civic Hall.
ask you to sit down a moment? Councillor Golby, could you either take your advice outside? Not at the moment. In a moment, you can indicate you want to speak. But please, Councillor Golby, if you want to have a discussion, please take it outside. Sorry, Councillor Evans, I've interrupted you twice now. I do apologise. I'll let you finish.
No, it's okay.
We are coming towards the end of your time, but carry on.
Well, I just wanted to say that there's a system in place already. I've said it, so it's on the record. 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, second Saturday of each month, Bedworth Library. We're at the back, where there's the big table. Come and see us.
So I've got Councillor Croft, you've indicated on the amendment.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Very narrowly on the amendment, I have to say I do disagree with Councillor Condecourt on the idea of a citizens' assembly, because in our system, in our constitution, decisions are taken through the elected representatives of the people. And it's not always popular, and Lord knows this isn't a very popular decision, but it is taken by those bodies that have a democratic mandate. The problem with a citizens' assembly is that they are not elected, they are selected, and they are usually self-selected. So I think Councillor Troman's made a very good point, which is that a citizens' assembly would not have a mandate, it would not have a democratic mandate, and it would not have any sort of, and I hate this phrase, but moral authority to levy any sort of taxes or suggest any sort of policy which covered the entire borough if it was a citizens' assembly based in Bedworth. It would effectively be a dead letter. It would have no legal and constitutional standing as far as this council was concerned. And it wouldn't have any ability to implement any suggestions. So it would not change the fact that there is a £2.5 million budget deficit currently forecast on the general fund for next year, for the financial year starting in the spring. Now, it might very well, this assembly, this meeting, might very well propose a programme for government. It might very well decide it wants 3 weekly bin collections, or it wants to wind back on homelessness support, or whatever it is it wants to do, but it would have no ability to implement that programme, and it would have no mandate to do so, because the council has been elected to take these decisions. So I'm afraid I'm going to oppose this, and I do disagree with it. And there is nothing stopping a public meeting being held and being organised, but any sort of council organised one would, like I say, would be a dead letter and have no constitutional standing. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. I've got Councillor Brett Beetham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just from having looked it up, Citizen Assembly, Councillor Croft is correct, there's no constitutional standing, at least within our records for that. It's a representative group of citizens who are selected at random from the population to learn about, deliberate and make recommendations. It is still up to elected politicians whether or not to follow the Assembly's recommendations. This, as been said by Councillor Croft, is not something that needs to be council organised. In fact, if it's to be led by non-politicians, making this completely non-political, it should be by the people themselves, in my opinion, which is why I cannot vote for Councillor Kondaka's amendment in that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beetham. Councillor Golby, you indicated you wanted to speak to the amendment. You can speak to the amendment?
No,
right to reply at the end. Yeah, so you'd have an opportunity to speak at the end of the debate on the amendment. Are there any other members indicating they wish to speak? Sorry, Councillor Shepherd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do wish to move an amendment of my own. And I am going to keep this.
You will need to wait until we've decided
Are
on
you
this
gonna
amendment,
wait?
and
Okay,
then we will.
If you can keep me on your list.
No other member are indicating at the moment in relation to Councillor Kondakor's amendment. So, Councillor Golby, you had a right to reply on to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is on a right of reply to the amendment, and it's something that links into what my fellow councillors have been saying, that this is actually uncosted. So the amendment that's been put forward for the council to set up a citizens' assembly has absolutely no cost attached to it. We have no idea how much it would cost the council. And when we're talking about a building that we're having to close or not reopen because of financial issues within the council that we're trying to solve, putting more cost onto that and an unquantified cost is probably not the wisest move. I'd also say that you're right, the Citizens' Assembly is drawn from a pool, and they are not, as you say, they are not necessarily representative of communities. There are, just quickly looked, around 130,000 people in the borough, and 94,000 of those are in Nuneaton, as per the 2021 census. So chances are, if you did have a citizens' assembly, it would probably be heavily stacked against Bedworth membership if you did it on proportionality. So there would be still no say that you would get the outcome that you want. And which MP do you use? Because if you're looking at a Nuneaton and Bedworth assembly, technically we've got 3 MPs. We've got Marcus Jones, Craig Tracy and Mark Pawsey. So which one do you choose? And who gets the greater say? Who gets the bigger representation? Who gets to make decisions based on what? We would literally just be going round in ever decreasing circles, because we already get the accusations about this is a Bedworth decision and this is not a Nuneaton decision and etc. etc. Well, where do you stop? Where do you draw the line on this? We've got to stop the division and accept that we are one borough. We are Nuneaton and Bedworth. This is where the decisions are made. Councillor Evans is quite right. We're all very accessible. Those of us that don't do face-to-face appointments, like, you know, myself, I don't generally do face-to-face appointments because I am literally at the end of a message if anybody needs me. And if somebody does need me and does need me to go around, I will go around and see them. Most of the stuff that I deal with doesn't need that, but I am accessible. I do communicate with people. So I just don't agree with the citizens' assembly approach. And again, we are just adding more and more layers into this, whereas really what we need to do is accept that what we've got is what we've got and it has to be dealt with. And putting any sort of citizens' assembly together wouldn't happen overnight, and this is an immediate problem. It wouldn't solve anything. It wouldn't fix anything, and it's not going to happen in the timescales that we need it to happen. So we would have to continue along the same lines that we're doing. So no, I don't agree with the amendment to the motion, and I will be voting against it.
What is the point of personal explanation, Councillor Condicourt?
Very briefly, I did say a Bedworth Citizens Assembly, and I'm being misrepresented that it's a Nuneaton and Bedworth, and it is a non-decision-making body.
That's taken. Councillor Golby.
Need I remind people this is Nuneaton and Bedworth, and I keep saying the division is not going to help, and this is an asset paid for by the taxpayers of Nuneaton and Bedworth. Therefore, it's only fair that Nuneaton and Bedworth are seen as a whole, which is why I said that.
On the last speaker. Point of order on what basis? What's your point of order, Councillor Evans?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I understand it, the Local Government Finance Act requires, when putting forward these sort of motions, for it to stipulate how it would be funded from the general fund, and the Section 151 officer has normally asked for that.
I don't think that's
previous motions.
I don't think that's
so. This is a legal motion.
Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate. A member can move an amendment, and that's been moved and seconded properly. So there's no requirement to have it fully costed at this point. We now, Councillor Golby, you've concluded. We now move to the vote on the amendment. Just a moment, then, whilst members get the papers, or the officers get the papers together. So we're voting, just for clarity, we're voting on Councillor Condicourt's amendment at this time. Mr Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll call each councillor's name out in turn. If you could indicate whether you're for the amendment, against the amendment, or wish to abstain. Councillor Baxter Payne. Councillor Beetham. Councillor Brown. Councillor Cape. Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cooper. Councillor Coventry Morton, we have apologies. Councillor Croft. Councillor Goretzkiewicz. Councillor Downs. Councillor Evans. Councillor Golby. Councillor Green. Councillor Guttridge. Councillor Hammersley. Councillor Harbison. Councillor Hartshorn. Councillor Kennedy's apologies. Councillor Condicourt. Councillor Markham. Councillor Morton. Councillor Pandey. Councillor Fergus, apologies. Councillor J Shepherd. Abstain, thank you. Councillor T. Shepherd has left the meeting. Thank you. Councillor Shires? Abstain. Councillor Singh? Councillor Smith? Councillor Mandy Tromans? Councillor Rob Tromans? Councillor Walsh? Councillor Watkins is apologies. Councillor Wilson is the apologies, and Councillor Wright. That's lost. That's lost, Mr. Mayor.
That amendment is lost. I've now been indicated that there's a possible second amendment. Councillor Shepherd, you indicated you wish to propose a further amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make this amendment really simple. That the petition is accepted and the request of the signatories is agreed. And I'm moving that because, and the reason for it, we're happy to support the petition and the actions that are being asked for. Labour call for the Civic Hall decision into scrutiny, and residents raised lots of questions which went unanswered, and the select committee was called for were not supported. So to hold a public meeting would be a way forward for us to have to say and be involved. So that's why I'm keeping this motion really simple. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Is that seconded? Councillor Shires, do you wish to reserve your opportunity right to speak at the moment? So we're now speaking to the amendment. Sorry, Councillor Shepherd, can I just ask, because we haven't got the print of that, it's coming round now, is it? It's coming round now, just give us a moment. Councillor Shepherd, I'm not quite sure, but the legal officer is informing me that it needs to be inserted into the proposal that's before us, rather than just a written So whereabouts would you like it inserted into that?
So essentially it needs to be an amendment to the original motion.
No, it needs to be an amendment, not instead of.
So, Mr. Mayor, apologies for not standing up. I think my knee's gone completely now.
I'm quite happy for you to stay seated, Councillor Shepherd. But so
keeping A in, removing B, C and D, and putting in my amendment in as B. Does that make sense?
So proposing
So
the amendment,
keeping
your
the
amendment, keep
to
A.
acknowledge the petition, which we should do, and putting in B, that the petition is accepted and the request of the signatory is agreed, and taking out C and D.
Thank you for the clarification. Just let me get legal clarification on that, Councillor Shepherd, and then we'll move forward. Right. Having taken the legal advice, it is very similar to the previous amendment. However, given the fact that we are here to debate, I'm going to allow the amendment that you've proposed. So it's now for members to have an opportunity to speak to that amendment. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always use the opportunity whenever to make my views known. I think that's part of my job. So the amendment that I've got here says that the petition is accepted and the request of the signatories is agreed. That's what's been moved by Councillor Shepherd. So the petition that I've got in front of me from Mr. Margrave, point 1, scrap plans to close or demolish the Civic Hall. So by accepting the amendment in front of us from Councillor Shepherd, we are essentially, council policy would become to abolish the plans.
Just for clarification, Councillor Evans, it's the proposal that was put forward by Councillor Claire Golby and that's been amended. Not.
It's been amended.
Yep.
So the second is to accept what
Yeah.
was on page 16, and the first part on page 16 is to close. Councillor Evans is correct.
No, my apologies, Councillor Evans. You were correct in your
So our
statement.
council policy would become not to go ahead with the plans to close the Civic Hall. So there would be a financial implication on the authority by accepting that amendment. So it comes back to my point that I made earlier, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not saying this to be political. If there is something in the financial gaps of this council that we, on this side of the chamber, have missed, now's the time for the opposition to tell us, what are your plans? Because you're telling us this evening that you want us to keep the Civic Hall open. And if that's your view, fine. And I'm sure that view is shared by many in the gallery. And they are entitled to that opinion, and rightfully so. But can you please tell us, because as councillors, we are responsible to set balanced budgets as per the Local Government Finance Act. So what we need to know from the proposer is, can you identify over £1 million worth of savings in-house to this year's general fund budget? And I would make my point again, Mr. Mayor. If the Labour group wish to move a procedural motion to adjourn this meeting for half an hour, or even a day, so they can sit down with the finance officers to work out where those savings would come from, and then come back to us and present a plan on how to keep the Civic Hall open for 12 months or whatever. If you want to move that, you will have my support.
Councillor
You will have my vote.
Councillor Evans, you're speaking to the amendment that's been moved, not...
By Councillor Shepherd,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, because it says that we should accept the petition which calls on us as a council not to go forward with the plans to close the Civic Hall. So I've made my point, and I look forward to hearing where those savings are going to come from and what cuts the Labour group would make, because we know, it's very clear, do you want us to move to monthly bin collections? Do you want us to increase green waste collections?
To the motion.
Those are the decisions we would need to take. I think now's the time to be open with us and the public to say where that money would come from. Thank you.
Councillor Beetham.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the amendment, it would fully accept every single recommendation that the petitioners have signed for. However, the first one, which fourth petition, makes total sense for them. They want to scrap plans to close or demolish the Civic Hall. However, with this going forward, I believe it would put the council in a legal position to find that money and scrap that plans in this financial year, if I'm not mistaken. And this amendment does not have any financial backing to us. And it is my fear in this amendment alone, how it's written, would bankrupt the council, in my view. If it was differently worded with financial backing, or that's a different story. But as this amendment is written, it would bankrupt the council as it is. So for that reason, I cannot accept this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beetham. Any other member? Councillor Brown. Oops.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Brown, can I just ask you to sit down a moment? I've got Councillor Condacor previous to yourself. Councillor Condacor.
I really don't mind which order we go in, Mr. Mayor. I think the point is massively supporting Civic Hall, but the petition's obviously got dated and overtaken by events in terms of scrap plans to close because it's been closed and whatever. And the petition contains 4 really, really useful items. So I'd almost, not sure if I can amend an amendment, but really scrapping plans to close is the bit that's difficult to do. It's like last night's planning committee where we had to approve the demolition of a building that's already been demolished. So that is a sort of tongue twister. I totally support where we're going with the public trying to have a county council and borough council working together. I totally support, obviously, with my amendment, a citizens' assembly, which isn't a decision-making body. It's a place where a random set of people, it's a random set
Councillor
of people...
Condacor, please keep to the amendment.
Yeah, the amendment is going to support 1, 2, 3,
It's
4,
not in
5.
relation to a citizens' panel.
It's there on the paper, Mr. Mayor. If we accepted the Labour amendment, we do 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5.
Correct, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a citizens' assembly isn't a decision-making body. It's like a jury. You get a random group of people. But the beauty of that is it doesn't pick politicians. And I think some discussion, some debate with people who aren't close in takes some of the heat out of it. So I really would support the Labour amendment if it didn't say reverse the plans to scrap closure, because that's already happened. But I'm going to support it anyway because 4 out of 5 are great. But I say we're in a place and we need to find a solution and we need to get a broad consensus, which is why I think working together, County Council and Borough Council point forward is really valuable. Leamington got their 3 million. I want Bedworth to get its 3 million. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. I'm not seeing any other... Oops, sorry, I do. Councillor, trying to keep track of everyone tonight. Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid I can't support this amendment tonight. As has been perfectly well pointed out by 2 of the councillors already, it would place us in a situation where we bankrupt the council, and the amendment from the Labour Party will tell us where the money's coming from, quite frankly, because we need to know that before we can even consider supporting it, and you haven't. As regards point 5, it's up to the public which theatre they choose to go to. We cannot legislate which is the primary theatre in the borough. In fact, the public over the past decade have voted with their feet, as have the companies, the performers and the local groups, theatrical groups. They've voted with their feet because they've taken their business out of the Civic Hall. They're not like the council. They can't, they go bust if they make a loss on something. They've chosen to go somewhere they can afford rather than go somewhere they can't afford. So I can't agree with point 5 either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'm looking round. I see no other indications for speak. Councillor Golby, you have the right to reply to the amendment on this occasion. Oh, sorry, yes, the seconder does it. Yeah, did reserve the right to speak. Sorry, Councillor Shires, your opportunity to speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The budget setting is in February and we'll be looking at the finances for then. However, as previously said by the opposition, that we are the opposition and it is not for us to do your job for you. and we are here tonight to actually listen to the residents.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Golby, you get the opportunity to sum up and then we move to the vote on the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, for all those watching at home, for a little bit of clarity, the amendment that has been put forward by the Labour group says that the petition is accepted and the request of the signatories is agreed. So, I'll read it out because not everybody has got access to this document at the moment. So what the Labour group are actually proposing we accept is to scrap plans to close or demolish the Civic Hall, to hold a public meeting at the Civic Hall to hear residents' views chaired by the MP, with councillors in attendance to listen to and answer questions. For NBBC, possibly with a citizens panel, to undertake a full consultation and work to set out a package to rescue the existing Civic Hall, to reduce costs and to bring the venue back into use. Point 4 is to ensure that Warwickshire County Council and Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council work together with the community to develop plans for wider regeneration of Bedworth Town Centre, to bring more into the town and invest to make Bedworth and our borough better with a bold vision for the future, to level up, not level down our towns, without losing all the current venue provides. And point 5 is to call on civic leaders to commit to make Bedworth the home for the borough's primary and premier conference and theatre activities in any future development. So with that, Mr. Mayor, comes significant cost, none of which are set out in this amendment here that says that the petition is accepted and the request of the signatories is agreed. So effectively, we're being asked to support signing a blank cheque for money that we haven't got. I'm not sure how many times we need to actually say this and be straight. Down the line, again and again and again, that scrap plans to close or demolish the Civic Hall, that's £1 million. We know it is, because that's why we can't reopen the Civic Hall, because that is effectively what it would cost. From a standing start, to accept that amendment would cost us £1 million. We have not got it. The Labour amendment doesn't provide any way of funding this today, not in February, today, because that is what we would have to do. We would have to walk out of here and find £1 million. And I don't know about anybody else, because God knows we've tried, but if you can tell us where we can get that from, fabulous. Point 3, to set out a package to rescue the existing Civic Hall. Again, financial implications not met in this amendment. Point 4, to ensure Warwickshire County Council and Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council work together with the community to develop plans for a wider regeneration of Bedworth Town Centre. That is what we have already proposed. And we have started the Transforming Bedworth programme under this administration. It was us that did that. So we're already doing that. We have a better and bold vision for Bedworth. We've presented that. We know which way we want to go with that. So again, part of that is already being done. But I cannot support this amendment for the simple fact that it does literally ask us to sign a blank cheque tonight before we walk out of this room, and we cannot commit to that financially. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. We move to the vote. All those... Thank you. So, could we take another recorded vote, please? Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll call each councillor's name out in turn. If you could indicate whether you're for the amendment, against the amendment, or wish to abstain. Councillor Baxter Payne. Councillor Beetham. Councillor Brown. Councillor Cape. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Croft. Councillor Kovacevic. Councillor Downs? Councillor Evans? Councillor Golby? Councillor Green? Councillor Guttridge? Councillor Hammersley? Councillor Harbison? Councillor Hartshorn? Councillor Condacor? Councillor Markham? Councillor Morton? Councillor Pandare? Councillor Phillips is apologies. Councillor J. Shepherd? Councillor Shires? Councillor Singh? Councillor Smith? Councillor M. Tromans? Councillor R. Tromans? Councillor Walsh? And Councillor Wright.
That amendment is lost. We return to the original proposal. Any other member wanting to indicate in relation to the original recommendations? Sorry, Councillor Beetham.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, this is a motion that I fully accept, and I would go a bit further as well in not only noting receipt of a petition, but thanking for those who signed it. It is the first petition under this Conservative Council since the e-petition rule change and the amount of signatories needed. Gone down from 3,000 to 750, so I'm glad we've managed to get enough going forward for that. As there's been a lot of discussion already, with the expression of interests welcome, which is point C of this motion, it is great to see a council trying to and striving for the third sector to have involvement in the civic hall or any alternatives that may come forward. And, you know, having a vision for transforming Bedworth, I know that many of my Conservative colleagues in Bedworth have been really active and forward with supporting that, and something that, as Councillor Golby said, should have been done at the same time as Nuneaton. And with that, I do support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beetham. Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We cannot support the motion as it has been made political and not actually for the residents. Additionally, I would like to put on record that the Labour group did not produce the leaflet. The Nuneaton Labour group did not produce the leaflet or have met with any finance officers as yet.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. I think that clarifies a previous question, which obviously was asked, but not necessarily responded to. Any other member? Councillor Golby. Oops, sorry. Councillor Shepherd, did you indicate there? Please. Sorry, please stay seated. Councillor Shepherd, if you're struggling.
Thank you. We can't support the motion. It doesn't address the petition and the signatories' request. Councillor Golby has mentioned Labour, and we've reduced year on year the subsidy given to the Civic Hall. But Councillor Golby failed to mention they were empowered in 2008 to 2010 and could play schemes and wardens and lots of other things. So I'm not surprised that they want to get rid of the Civic Hall. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's fair to say, it's already been said, that none of us want to be in this position. I think councillors in Bedworth, in particular, recognise the passion and the fervour that's become as a result of this decision having to be made. And it's not something that we want to do. But as has been said, we're in a position where there simply isn't the money to reopen the Civic Hall. We've asked for expressions of interest from other providers to come forward and take on the running. If that doesn't work, we've put forward a vision for how we can incorporate a new Civic Hall into a regeneration of the centre of Bedworth. Now, I'm not an expert on the Civic Hall. I've performed on stage at the Civic Hall. I've worked backstage at the Civic Hall. I've been in the audience at the Civic Hall. Prior to being elected in 2018, I was the trustee of another local theatre, one that was successful and made a profit. So I understand some of the things that go into running a theatre.
Councillor Brown, just a moment. Councillor Evans, please, if you allow people to listen to the debate. It's disturbing the meeting. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I was going to say is that it doesn't make me an expert. And I appreciate the passion and views of people who have attended tonight and asked questions. But there are some people amongst that group and elsewhere on social media that for whatever reason, whether it be political or stirring up trouble, have appointed themselves as experts. They don't even have my experience, but they've suddenly become overnight experts. And that's not to take away the passion of the people that have signed this petition. And it's great that we can actually have a debate about this. But we are in a position where the Civic Hall was mismanaged for decades. It's also a building that actually has an identity crisis. Right? It's not a theatre. Anybody who's performed there knows it's got a wide stage. That stage has no depth that's required by touring companies for theatrical performances. It's got no wings to speak of to store sets and things like that. It's got no orchestra pit, which means that a band has to be on stage or in a corner of the auditorium, which is not ideal for the people sitting near the front where the orchestra is. It's got great acoustics, but over the years, the sound system, the lighting systems that support it were allowed to go out of date. So modern touring productions just don't want to go there because they can get a better service at other theatres. The Civic Hall priced itself out of the league where local community theatre groups could go there. They went elsewhere. Yet, on the other hand, it wasn't big enough and well enough equipped to take modern touring productions. It might have been 40 years ago, but it's not now. So it's a building with an identity crisis. And I really hope somebody comes forwards and says they want to take it on, that has the money to do so. But there is some work for that, whoever it is to do, to come forward and do that. So we are in a situation where we are. All the good arguments I've heard tonight do not answer the problems that we do not have the money. We do not have £1 million, and we're certainly not in a position to add to the 2 million we've got to find. So I will be supporting this motion here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can I just ask people who wish to leave, please leave quietly. Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I shall try and be brief. After Councillor Brown's expertise, I think there's little more to be said on the actual venue itself. But I do want to emphasise the point that and the reason the motion notes the petition rather than accepts it and implements its recommendations, as the opposition would have us do, is that to do so would open this council up to massive financial liabilities. Now, Councillor Golby has already made the point in the debate at some point that it would cost £1 million. It would cost £2 million because we're already just under £1 million adrift from the in-year budget. We are already going to have to make that kind of correction on the basis of inflation and pay awards and the other cumulative costs we have had this year. And then, as I've made the point already, there is a £2.5 million deficit projected for next year, and that's on the general fund. That is not including the capital works that we would be required to do as a local authority to make the building, to get it up to scratch and make it fit for public use, as we would be required to do. We have a duty of care to do that. Now, Mr. Mayor, I should just labour the point that a local government budget must be balanced and sustainable. The Section 151 officer must sign a declaration to say that. If she does not, then she issues a Section 114 notice, and that is game over. We are not going to allow that to happen, and I do believe that it is the responsibility of those who would suggest this kind of spending to propose how it will be paid for. And it's very interesting. It is very interesting to note that the acting leader of the opposition, for want of a better phrase this evening, made the point that, and the deputy, made the point that the message that has been put out did not have anything to do with the Labour group. It must have been some other Labour party who proposed doing that. It is their responsibility, and I will point out, Mr Mayor, that we are engaging with the community. We have given them the opportunity to come forward and use the talents and the genius of the general public and of the business community to propose ways of keeping the venue open rather than putting the cost on the taxpayer. So I shall end it there, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Yes, you've not spoken on the original motion. Councillor Shires. Oh, sorry. Thought he was on the amendment. I'm advised you've already spoken, Councillor Shires, so unfortunately, it's point of order. Okay, that can be allowed.
Thank you. As it says on the bottom of that leaflet, it was Bedworth Labour Party. That is not us. That is then funded through North Warwickshire Labour Party, and it's not through the Nuneaton Labour Party. And it's been put, as you know, we don't have any councillors in Bedworth anyway. We have not authorised it.
It is a point of personal explanation rather than point of order, but well, it's been said. Thank you. Councillor Golby, you have a right of reply in relation to the motion as proposed at the outset.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yep, again, this is the right of reply to the main debate, which is our motion. And I would like to thank Councillor Shires for that crystal clear clarification that this is nothing to do with you, but you are in the seat and you do have to provide the financial information for what your colleagues are setting you up for. I'd be having words about that. When we were in opposition, we actually fully costed our motions. We actually fully costed alternative budgets, which were obviously roundly rejected by the then leadership. We also proposed several times, I believe it was actually Councillor Evans, proposed many times
Councillor Golby,
for
try
audits.
and keep on to the
I
motion.
am, sir,
Yeah,
I
thank
am.
you.
Yes, I'm speaking about the motion. This all relates to the Civic Hall. We put forward audit proposals to have the Civic Hall audited because we knew that there were issues that potentially could lead to financial implications being uncovered. And again, Councillor Evans proposed those things. They were, again, roundly rejected. Now, this could have been dealt with a long time ago, and for the members opposite to drag up 2 years when we were in control is a little bit desperate, and there's 2 words answer to that: climbing wall. Let's all not forget that one. So when we were in opposition, it was noted that there were issues at the Civic Hall of a financial nature. Eventually, the audit went through. We found out that one of the things we found out was they were tipping, was it 24% of the beer down the drain? So again, how is that making profits? I'm actually happy with the motion that we've put forward because I think it does actually allow us to do what we need to do with an eye on the fact of all these things that I've just spoken about. Essentially, it does come down to we haven't got the money to open the building. Nothing is going to change that fact. We want somebody to come forward that has and that can run it. And I don't know how many times we've got to say it in how many different ways. What I do know, and I have to make this a matter of public record, is I'm not enthused by the type of things that have gone on in the public gallery where we're being screamed at. I'm also not enthused by some of the things that I've seen posted about me on social media by certain people.
Councillor Golby, can I bring you back to the
I
summing
am,
up, please?
yes. It all goes to the motion of running the expressions of interest, etc., etc. That's open for everybody. To if you have an expression of interest, if you have a viable plan, put it forward. I can't really say more than that, and I think I would like to recommend that this motion is supported because it does what needs to be done in the time it needs to be done. So I will leave that there.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. We now move to the vote on the substantive motion. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Can I just thank everyone for their attendance? I understand, obviously, it may not be exactly as you want to hear it, but the debate has taken place in relation to that, as it should. Thank you. We'll be moving on to the next item in just a moment. Right, moving on to item 11, the Cabinet report. Councillor Golby, I think it's back to you again, I'm sorry. Unless you want to delegate.
I'll just present as written, Chair.
Thank you. That opens the Cabinet report now for questions. Councillor Conacher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of things. I'll start off with wheelie bins because we brought it up at the planning and regeneration scrutiny about the real wheelie bins not being charged to new developments. And Councillor Smith kindly gave me an answer from the planning point of view. But obviously this charging that hadn't happened for the last 3 years seems to have fallen down the hole between the Councillor Markham's and Councillor Smith's portfolio. So can Councillor Markham explain why the Waste Department hasn't been charging for these bins and where the communication broke down between the vote in 2019 to charge for wheelie bins to developers and it actually not happening until recently? Thank you.
Councillor Markham, did you have a reply?
Yeah, it is actually a matter that's being sorted, so I can give you, that's the reply for now, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Conacher.
My second item is about the vehicle replacement programme. Obviously, the details of that are exempt because it's a commercial matter, but the principles are we had a policy at this council that we were going to go for 10% of our vehicles being electric in the, I think it was a housing fleet, and 20% in the general fund fleet, and that's on the public record part. That policy is now changed and the new vehicles will be entirely diesel. And I'm also worried that because we replace them every 7 years, I've been informed the next replacement will also potentially be all diesel. So it could be 14 years before we start putting electric vehicles into the housing fleet. So can I ask Councillor Golby, I think it's probably your portfolio, why it was an urgent matter, why we didn't have a debate or some discussion or some advance warning of this change of policy? Thank you.
Councillor Golby, did you wish to respond?
Yeah, it was a commercial decision, and given the climate that we're currently in, we are getting the best value for money for the taxpayer. I mean, principles are great, but they kind of cost a bit more money, and we haven't got it. We've had an entire conversation about that tonight. Also, the infrastructure isn't there yet. However, we will look in the future to do this, and who knows where vehicle development will get to. We may have more, we may have less. Who knows? Honestly, right about now, if anybody said 5 years ago that we'd have gone through a pandemic and a financial crisis, I think we probably would have been slightly better prepared. But you know, Mystic Meg was having an off day, and she couldn't predict that. So we are where we are, and we're having to deal with the situation at hand in the way that we can. And the priority is to get best value for money for the taxpayer and spend the money that we have got as wisely as possible. And like I say, the principles are laudable. However, the situation is what it is.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Condacor.
Thank you. Sorry for another question. This is the Housing Revenue Account budget monitoring. Can we have an update on how the spending's going on the new temporary housing for the homeless? Because obviously you've got a lot of schemes going, like Kingsbury House, whatever house in Bedworth. You've got 196 to 198 Church Road, Stocking Forward, and it's unclear from the budget monitoring how far these projects are progressing, because like everyone else, I'm sure we're desperate to get the temporary housing working as quickly as possible, particularly as we're putting spikes outside the council house to stop the homeless lying on the pavements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. I think it's more general fund rather than... Is it you, Councillor Golby? You want to answer that? Thank you. So you're going
to... we haven't put spikes on the floors outside of the town hall, so let me just, you know, this isn't running the gauntlet. The spending is going well. The projects are going well, and it's interesting that now the viewpoint seems to have slightly shifted, considering there have been serious criticisms from Councillor Condacor about Church Road. And I can say that I, more than anybody, want that project finished as quickly as possible, because I understand exactly the need that we have in this borough to get those sorts of facilities up and running. My team are working diligently to get the project completed as quickly as they can with the budget constraints that we've got, but it's going well. So I'm pleased to report that back to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. Councillor Condacor.
Can I just clarify that the spikes have been put on the wall and the steps between
I think
this
it's been
building
clarified
and the
that there's
next?
no spikes, Councillor Condacor. There's no spikes.
They're round dimples to stop people
Thank
going
you.
out the fire exit and...
Moving on, any other members on the Cabinet report? Thank you. Move on to item 12, recommendations from Cabinet or the committees. 12A. Cabinet on the 9th of November, sub-regional materials recycling facility. Councillor Smith, is that?
Councillor Mark.
Sorry, Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This was a report that went to Cabinet on the 9th of the 11th, and it's recommended to Council that an additional loan of £233,784 be made to Sherborne Recycling Limited to address the increased capital cost of constructing the sub-regional material recycling facility, and that this be included in a medium-term financial strategy for payment in 23-24. It is actually a commercial loan, and it will get paid back to us at commercial rates.
Thank you for that proposal. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Guttridge. Do you wish to speak at this point, or? Okay, you're reserving your rights? Thank you. Councillor Condacor, sorry. Okay, Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited about getting a new toy to recycle our waste. It's been a long, long time coming, and many years ago, in fact, probably a decade or so ago, I thought them building an incinerator on that very site. But it's really important these things get used well, and I'm always concerned we build these expensive plants and then we don't tell the public how to use them to the best effect. And the public, yeah, they want us to spend money on various useful things. And one thing recycling does, if it's done well, is it actually generates an income back to the council. So I really ask, can we make sure this project, with this vast amount of money, we're talking tens of millions of pounds here, has a really good educational aspect? Because there's no point in building the world's greatest recycling machine if people don't put the right stuff in the recycling bins. And all the good recycling schemes we've had around the country in the past, award-winning schemes, have always featured vast amounts of education. So if you have £100,000 extra to spend on it, you spend that on education so that people put the right stuff in the bins, and then you get back £100,000 every year from that aluminium recycling or paper recycling, etc. So we keep racing down this, giving them more money, etc. I'm happy to fund...
Can I bring you back to the recommendation? Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm happy to
Councillor.
fund it on condition that we have maintained the education element of this project, because that means we're not building something that will fail because people will put the wrong stuff in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm more than happy to support this, just so that, and where by competitive it means that we will get our money back and more as per interest rates and competitive loaning, I imagine. And in regards to education, I think we've had decades worth of education for recycling. Hopefully with mixed recycling facilities, you put all the recycling into one instead of having the hamper basket as well. So it should be a lot easier for people to do what they need to. So I would not be fussed to add any clause about education. Thank you.
Sorry, I have Councillor Shepherd next. Again, if you want to stay seated, Councillor Shepherd, I understand your
Thank you.
bit of pain tonight.
Whilst appreciating the reasons for the need for an additional loan, which obviously I can understand that, are all the shareholders being asked for the same sum of money so that I'm assured that, you know, we're not paying more than somebody else? And can I seek assurance that we'll not be asked in a few months' time for a little bit more?
Thank you. I'm sure Councillor Markham will pick that up in a few moments when we get to the end of the debate. Councillor Damon Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm more than happy to support this. Having visited the site, one of the major purposes of it is to make recycling simpler so that we don't have a process to go through where residents have to separate out this, that and the other into different bins. It actually makes it a lot easier. And having again visited the site, they have got facilities there for education. I hope that answers Councillor Condacor's point as well.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other member? Councillor, I'll come back to you, Councillor. Sorry, I've missed one. Councillor Wright.
Will these new facilities include provisions for recycling electrical waste, which seems to make up an increasing proportion of waste and which is not currently easily recyclable?
Thank you. I'm sure that's to say. Councillor picked that up. Any other member? Councillor Guttridge, you indicated a second you wish to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm a bit bemused by Councillor Condarker's remarks that we must educate the people. We do educate the people, but first of all, we must get the plant up and running. If we don't put our pro rata money in, we're not going to have a plant that we can recycle with. So let's get the plant done, then we can recycle. And as Councillor Brown said, they do tutor you and show you how to recycle at the place. So my view is we get the plant up and running and then we do recycling. We've got a good comms team. As soon as we're up and running, the comms team will put out comms and the waste management team, we suit Councillor Markham, will do it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge. Can I just remind all councillors of the protocols when speaking, please? Councillor Markham, back to yourself.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a couple of points. I was going to say about the comms. We will make sure that the comms is out there. Another comment that you made, saying that it's costing tens of millions of pounds, but we're not paying tens of millions of pounds, just to clarify that point, so it's not all coming from us. We have actually got various partners in this who own different amounts of shares, and the amount that we're paying is pro rata to our share. So not everybody's paying the same amount. Some are paying a lot more than we are, and I think there's one paying less. As far as the electric side, I'll have to get back to you on that, but I'm not sure whether it is or not. But the other thing that I will just reiterate, it is a loan, and we're getting that loan paid back to us at commercial rates. We're not just handing the money and not getting anything back out of it.
Thank you. Move to the vote on the recommendation proposal. All those in favour? Any against? And no abstentions? Any? No abstentions, right here. So that's carried. Moving on to item, losing track again, 12B. 12B. Treasury Management. Mid-year review was considered at Cabinet. Councillor Croft, we move to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I shall move the report as it is printed on the agenda in my name, with the proviso of the amendment sheet that every councillor should have, because Councillor Condacor was very eagle-eyed earlier today and spotted that there were some line items on page 33 that didn't have 0 point in front of. It's entirely understandable given the extra work I've given the finance department, but we've fixed that now, and I do wish that I had access to £632 million worth of expenditure in my department. We'd solve a lot of problems, but that is 0.632, for example, in that line, because it's in millions in that table. This is our mid-year Treasury review. We are obliged to do this as part of our management framework. It covers it gives an update on the economic situation, how that has impacted our investment portfolio, our borrowing requirement, compared to when it was set back in February, because conditions have very much deteriorated since then. And I will just point out, Mr. Mayor, that we are currently preparing Budget 2023-2024, so we will be addressing the issues raised in terms of the capital programme in that. So I shall move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Golby. Oh, sorry. Councillor Evans. Reserving your right. Okay, thank you. Any speakers on this item? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm really shocked by this actually error where we actually had 632 million to spend in corporate finance and things. And it wasn't actually me who spotted the error originally. It was actually people that Councillor Croft considered as being lunatic fringe people who don't know their accounts. And they actually mentioned to me this number was wrong before I actually read the report. So unfortunately, the people you make rude noises at are actually the ones that spotted your finance error. I think that's quite nice, actually. On a more serious note, these are still serious amounts of debt we're borrowing. And there is not the good linking with the capital programme and the medium-term financial review and the Treasury management. And when we had this come to us before in September, it was said when the Treasury came, there was going to be a medium-term financial projects, whatever you call it, report come out afterwards in the next month or so. When that came out, it lacked any detail about the expenditure. And now we're having to wait till the budget to get more detail about the capital programme, not in year, but for actually next year. We're borrowing £43.25 million extra for these capital works, and yet we don't know how much of the capital works that is effectively done. Like if you ask questions like the vehicle replacement, which is part of the capital programme, all that money is actually we're spending next year, i.e. the vehicles won't come till after the 1st of April. So without actually tying up this massive borrowing with which of the projects are in, which of the projects are half in, like the leisure centre in Bedworth, I assume we're paying the first X million and the next X millions will be in the next financial year. We don't know whether we're approving funding that is a sensible level and there's a giant rest of the iceberg to come, or whether we're on target. And on page 33, where it says borrowing requirement original and revised is the same, obviously in the intervening time, all sorts of projects have gone pear-shaped, and some projects have got extra funding and actually gone down in their requirements. So I do hope Councillor Croft can give us a bit of a feel for how much of this money we're borrowing is compared to how much stuff we're getting for that money, if you understand. Because the classic example is the swimming pool, which we're told we're going to be 25, 26, 27, and then the leader now says it's 34 million. So, yeah, I'd like a bit of clarity, and also things like Bridge to Living, because that is not going to be built this year now. Was that in this 34 million, 43 million, and is that now in next year's 43 million? I say, without the medium-term plan, and the county council does it really nicely, you see all the projects, you see how they're all slipping and money carried from year to year. We have no visibility what this money gets for us, and if the 43 million really is 43 million. Because if a project is a year late, we might only be borrowing 33 million this year. I say, we've only got half the picture. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacore. See no other indications, so I'll move back to Councillor Evans. You indicate you were seconded. Did you want to say any more? Councillor Croft, before we move to the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I will just make the very brief point that I've already expressed to Councillor Condacore that we are going to be introducing 3-year reporting on capital projects. So we're not there yet and we've got over the issues in the Finance Department several times, but that is incoming. So I shall move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. For all those in favour of the recommendations, any against? They'll be noted. Thank you. Any abstentions? That's carried. Moving on to item 12C, and it is you, Councillor Smith, now, I believe. Get you in the end.
It is indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report provides information to update the Council on the Local Development Scheme, otherwise known as the Borough Plan Review, as well as the Gypsy and Traveller Development Plan document, or DPD, with the text and timeframes that need to be amended to bring them in line with the current working position. The published timeframe indicates that the publication version of the Borough Plan Review, which is the next stage of the plan-making process, should have gone out to consultation in October 22 and subsequently be submitted to the Secretary of State in February 23. For various reasons, which I will outline but is fully explained in the report, it's recommended that the publication stage is now delayed until April 23. This will then ultimately have a knock-on effect to the submission to the Secretary of State. The main reason for the delay is due to the late publication of the Sub-Regional Housing and Economic Development Needs Assessment, or HEDNA, and the subsequent Towards a Housing Requirement for Nuneaton and Bedworth document, which was recently updated to reflect the outputs of the 2021 census. This key document projects the housing numbers and employment land requirement for the borough up to 2039 and forms the platform on which all our supporting evidence-based documents are built. These supporting documents include policies on air quality, landscaping, heritage and biodiversity, as well as critical evidence-based documents such as the Strategic Transport and Flood Risk Assessment. The recent publication of these documents will also allow us to begin discussions with our local authority partners to satisfy our duty to cooperate. Now we have numbers to base our discussions on. In terms of the Gypsy and Traveller Development Plan document, it's previously predicted that this would be submitted to the Secretary of State in July of 22, which would have led to their examination in public in November or December of this year, with subsequent adoption in 2023. In reality, the document was submitted earlier than scheduled in June, and the public examination hearing was actually carried out by a planning inspector at the end of October, so we're ahead of the curve on this one. I'm therefore hopeful that this could potentially bring the adoption forwards if the plan is considered sound by the planning inspector. So I'm happy to propose the recommendations as printed.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Baxter-Payne. Any questions? Councillor Condacor. I did see another indication.
I'm always happy for someone else to go first if they're very keen. Fundamentally, the Conservatives came into office on a promise to reduce the housing numbers and quickly review the local plan. It's sort of 10 out of 100. Yeah, you've done a bit of it, but you've not done the important bits enough. You had all these promises on parking, you had the promises on saving the Civic Hall, but the one a lot of people wanted was a promise on a quick review of the borough plan and to reduce the housing numbers. What we're doing by not adopting this till 2024 is we're carrying on for almost all Labour's dreadful borough plan and all the problems in the whole Hedners and GL Hearn stuff we had before. And when you look at the new Hedner, it actually repeats the same problems we had before. It assumes we create jobs in this borough, which is great, but then it assumes for every 100 jobs we create in this borough, we need 130 extra people because it fixes the commuting rate. So actually, when you create more jobs here, it assumes that there are even more people here to commute out, to keep the ratios half the same as they were. And fundamentally, creating jobs has always reduced out commuting. If you look over the last 20 years, when the boroughs had a nice big employer coming in and had more jobs, the number of people driving out to Coventry and Leicester went down. And when we lost jobs, because one of our employees sadly closed, the number of people driving out went up. And the Hedner doesn't get that right. It gets it totally backwards. So I think we need to... I know we're only discussing the timetable here, but if we don't get that right, we're investing lots of money in a plan that predicts more housing need than we actually have. And we're currently building so many houses empty at the moment. Building rates high, but they're not getting filled. And I'd really love to have the targets brought down and brought down. And also, there's so much green stuff we need to be doing. And there's all these words about this new local plan being a lot greener, but there's not the substance there. Yeah, we're not having solar panels on the roofs. We're not having green infrastructure all over. It is a sort of half-hearted attempt, and it's like probably our electric vans policy. We'll have a policy and then we'll under-deliver on already a weak policy. So I won't be supporting this change because as it stands, there's no point in having this plan because it's rubbish.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. As you rightly identify, it's about timescales, but I've got Councillor Brett Beethan.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. Could it just be confirmed that the reason for the delay was for delaying the sub-regional Hedner? And in regards to the Hedner, etc., it's a legal requirement, or at least strengthens our case within housing numbers, etc. It's not something within our control to modify. And if we were to, would it potentially let us open to a legal case in regards to the housing and therefore open us up for developers on greenfield sites which we have not included in it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beetham. Not seeing any other member. I'll go to Councillor Baxter-Payne. You seconded. Did you wish to make any further comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting this because I think that the delays and the challenges will ensure that this plan becomes sustainable and delivers something for the borough, and a borough plan that will meet the needs of this borough for the future. So I think it is important to support it, and I shall be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter-Payne. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad Councillor Condacor pointed out that the current plan we have was actually Labour's plan, not ours. He talks about us not reducing housing numbers. I'll remind him that Labour's plan called for 14,000 houses in a 15-year period. Our review on the current figures calls for 8,000 houses up to 2039, so I don't see his point on that. We're supporting employment, creating jobs and providing homes that we desperately need, including a very large amount of affordable homes. To answer the question from Councillor Beetham, the borough plan needs to be strongly evidence-based, and the core for creating that evidence base starts with the headner. We can't do anything until we have a headner, because everything runs from that. Once we know the need, we can then look at where it will be, we can assess those sites and look at the varying needs of those sites. So you simply can't produce a sound plan that's legal, that will be passed by an inspector without that headner. I'll go with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations? Any against? That's noted, thank you. Any abstentions? 2. That's carried. Thank you. Finally, can I thank all the members of the public for their attendance tonight and their input. I do appreciate that it can be difficult, but I appreciate their attendance all the same. Can I just say thank you everyone for your business, conducting the business tonight, and also I'll declare the meeting closed and wish you a Merry Christmas and a safe journey home. Thank you everyone.